Hello, hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 51 of the Hideout. And we've got an awesome panel today. Just checking, making sure everybody can hear me. I know we've got a couple more speakers in the audience that we're just trying to get up here. So I think we have Blockchain Gaming Alliance and Search for Animera. I'm sending you guys requests if you want to accept those, and we'll get you guys up here. But otherwise, we'll get started. So for those of you who don't know, the Hideout is a weekly Twitter Spaces that we do that talks about Web3 gaming in the Metaverse. We bring up some of the best projects that are building in the Metaverse and in the Web3 gaming space, and are fortunate enough to have done this now 51 times. So very, very excited to have this panel here. This is a very special panel. Really, really great guests, including a bunch of different guests that are going to be participating in our launch. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nick Frontera. I'm the founder and CEO of Apollo Entertainment, the company behind Satoshiverse and the Legions 2029 game. I got started in the blockchain space about 6 years ago now in 2017, and have been in the space ever since. Before that, I was working as a lawyer in the entertainment industry. So this has been my passion for a long time. Very excited to be here building with all these other great panelists that we're going to have today. For those of you who don't know Satoshiverse, Satoshiverse is a blockchain-themed superhero universe that we started back in 2020 with Marvel and DC comic artist Jose Delbo, who actually turns 90 next month, which is kind of crazy to think about. We've been doing this for the last 3 years. We have 2 avatar collections, a ton of comic art, and over 75,000 holders in our community throughout the world. So very, very fortunate to have a great community. For the last 2 years, we've been building our Legions 2029 game, which, as you might see in the pinned tweet, is getting ready for our mainnet launch, which is coming very soon. And we're fortunate to have one of my favorite, if not my favorite, blockchain here, Polygon, which is who we're going to be launching our game initially on. So very, very excited for Polygon. I'll tell some stories about how I learned about Polygon all these years back. It's pretty relevant to the topics here. But for those of you who don't know a lot about the game is kind of a hybrid between a few different gaming styles. We took inspiration from roguelikes like Hades, but then mixed in a combat system that's inspired by God of War with like a hack and slash arcadey feel, but then also character and game progression similar to games like Diablo and World of Warcraft. So we really tried to develop a game that catered to an open player economy, which is what we feature here in Web3, and really built a design that could scale with this open player economy. So we're very excited to have that currently available in testnet alpha. So those of you who want to play can already play for free. In fact, we have a bunch of prizes for those who register an account now and play the game. So you can still take advantage of those. I won't talk about it too much because we've got the pinned tweet there, and I really want to get to introductions for our panelists. But just know that we've got a ton of awesome stuff coming up. It's all in the tweet. One of the things I do want to highlight, though, is that when we launch our mainnet launch, you're going to be able to play to mint for free an avatar. And what we're doing there is essentially you'll be able to get into the game. You'll be able to use our avatar creator to customize an avatar. You'll be able to then put a patch of the logo of one of our 40 participating communities in there. So you'll be able to kind of customize your logo with your favorite community, including all of the communities that are on this panel. Then as long as you get to level 5, which shouldn't take you that long, it's a relatively easy task. You get to level 5 and you're going to be able to mint that avatar on Polygon Proof of Stake for free. So, we're really excited for that. We think it's an awesome way to bring a lot of communities together, and we want to thank all the communities who are here today for participating in that. And then if you register now prior to the launch, you're actually going to be able to get a custom clothing skin for that avatar when you customize it. And they look really, really cool. They have all sorts of emissives. So I definitely would recommend that you just create your account now, and you'll be all set up for that when we launch. So enough about Satoshiverse, enough about Legions. Let's turn to our awesome panel of guests. I'm going to call on you guys, and then we'll just start with some quick introductions, and then we'll get into some questions for the group and some individual questions. So why don't we start with Polygon? You guys have been doing so much for the gaming space for such a long time, such an important part of the Web3 community. We're so lucky to have you guys here. Very, very excited to be working with all of you. Logan, please take it away. Give us a quick introduction and tell us about yourself and about Polygon.
Yeah, of course. And first and foremost, I want to say, we're appreciative for you guys. We're a blockchain. It's a decentralized network. We're not the ones doing the heavy lifting. You guys are. You're building the community. You're bringing the people together, and that's the stuff we're excited to see. I have to ask real quick. This is episode 51. Have you been doing this every single week?
Every single week. We may have missed one or two along the way for holidays and out of town, but yeah, every single week for almost a year, or for actually longer than a
Almost
year.
a year.
Yeah.
A year next week.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Nothing better than like consistency within the community. Like that's one of the biggest things that I've seen. Um, Anyway, enough rambling. I'm Logan. I work on the Polygon ecosystem marketing team. Effectively, anytime we get cool games, projects, NFTs, whatever it might be, building on top of Polygon, using the tech to do cool things, it is my job to do what I can to bring that to the people and show it off. And that's the skinny of it. I've been here for about a year and a half. Survived a few Black Swan events, and we're here today, excited about what the next year holds. And that's all I will say for my intro.
Thanks, Logan. So I'll very quickly expand upon that, just because I've always been a huge fan of Polygon, probably since before it was Polygon, when it was Matic. But what was interesting to me is actually how I learned about Polygon, which also kind of ties into a lot of what we're doing. I was a big fan of Decentraland, and that's how I got into the space and was first introduced to the concept of NFTs through Decentraland. And Matic, the first time I heard about Matic was through an exhibit that that the Polygon team put together within Decentraland, and it was an educational exhibit that talked about the value of being able to have higher throughput transactions and lower gas costs. And at that time, I knew very little about the blockchain and gaming on the blockchain, but that was kind of the focus. And from that point on, I got to meet the team. I got to talk to a lot of the key stakeholders back then, and the rest is history. It's been an awesome 3 years building on Polygon. But I thought it was interesting, just learning about things in the metaverse is kind of a unique thing for this space, which I really love. But all right, so let's move to Euphorica. Could you give us a quick introduction and tell us about what you're building? And before you do, just real quick, sorry, if you guys have anything you want to pin to the top of the spaces or mention that you've got going on, please feel free to. I pinned ours up there, but please feel free to drop something up there about your projects as well. We definitely want to support anything you have going on.
Yeah, cheers, Nick. So my name is Zach. I'm co-founder and CPO at Euphorica. We're a Metaverse platform pre-launch. We're focusing on 3 pillars. So the first pillar is IP, narrative, and lore. That's where we first came across Satoshiverse. Actually, Spencer invited me onto his comic and crypto podcast because we just produced our first edition comic book, one of 5 already in motion, working with a great artist called Jonathan Kolsch, who worked on the Marvel series. And the second pillar is UGC, and that's all underpinned by the third pillar, which is game engine technology, because we're bringing our own game engine to market. I just want to big up the Polygon team as well. They've helped us a lot on this journey. I've been dealing with Ravi and Sergio and Ronak. So, yeah, lots of love for the Polygon team.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, really great to have you here. Thanks so much for participating in our launch and being a supporter. Let's jump over to BGA and this is another organization that we became part of pretty recently, but just have nothing but good things to say about everything they're doing in the space. So could you give us a quick introduction and tell us a little bit more?
Sure. Hey, Nick, Flavien here. Happy. I hope you're doing well. I'm Flavien from the Blockchain Game Alliance. We are a non-profit organization, and our goal is to promote blockchain within the gaming industry. We really want to talk to the gaming industry and say, hey guys, you could actually learn more about what's happening in the blockchain game because we have some members and they are building incredible things. And we actually thrive for education as well on our side. We do a lot of things and activities to educate ourselves as a community of professionals, capitalizing on everyone, but also and most of all try to educate the gaming industry through a lot of different things the members are building. So education would be the first key on our side, the key elements for the BGA mission. And the second one is obviously we want to grow the blockchain gaming ecosystem. And the purpose of why we want to do that is to obviously give opportunities for both blockchain and gaming companies, but anyone actually involved in the blockchain gaming sector. Could be VCs, it could be law firms, it could be digital asset management tool, it could be anyone. We want to drive growth in our ecosystem. So that's what we do. It's really based on education and networking opportunities through online and offline events. So
All right, so I think I might have lost sound over there. I don't know if everyone else if it cut
Yeah,
out,
I
but
lost it as well.
okay. So yeah, we might not have heard the last couple seconds of what you were saying, Flavian, but feel free to jump back on and finish. I'm not sure you might have been finished. It might have just been silence. All right, we'll check back. We'll check back, and why don't we jump over to Search for Animera? Could you give us a quick introduction about what you guys are building? Welcome to the spaces.
Hey Nick, good to be back here again. This is Adil from Search for Animera. I'm the co-founder and acquisition, marketing, partnership, fundraising, all of that rolled into one person. That guy who's doing this, I can't code or draw, so that's my skill set. Really happy to be here. We are about to launch our private beta in less than 2 months, and Search for Animera is a free-to-play PvP only sci-fi space shooter game that's about to come out, and mainnet's going to be in Q1. And about this fact that Nick, you guys are on episode 51 now. Episode 51, awesome. Like I'm still getting into the habits. I'm forcing myself into hosting weekly spaces. So in 45 minutes from now, I have to bounce and host my own episode 14. So awesome. You guys are doing this for a year. It takes a lot of effort, dedication, research, but yeah, happy to be here and great panel.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And yes, definitely a huge props to Spencer, Lau, and Danny, who help us put together the spaces every week. And, I'm fortunate enough to kind of just show up and get to meet all these cool people every week. So really, there is a ton of effort that goes into it behind the scenes, which, none of it's possible without everybody, all the awesome speakers and listeners coming and watching live and the recorded version. So thank you to all of you guys because you guys are the ones who make all this possible. So thank you. And I guess mentioning Spencer, why don't we give you an introduction and then get started with the questions?
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. My name is Spencer Vogel, the business development manager at Satoshiverse and Apollo Entertainment. Today on our spaces, we're going to start off with some questions for everyone in the group, and then move into some individual questions. For the everyone questions, I'll call on to someone to start, and then feel free to just jump in after that. And then at the end of the space, we always do a giveaway for our people who are here listening. So make sure you stick around until the end of the space for a chance to win that prize. we'll be giving away a Satoshiverse NFT. So getting into the first question, and maybe Logan, you can start us off on this one. How can we effectively educate traditional gamers and the broader public about the benefits and mechanisms of Web3 gaming?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that I kind of harp on a lot. I think it's really a Trojan horse approach, and maybe that's counterintuitive at first. I don't think we need to do a ton on like the education side, and I think we need to do a lot more on like the kind of tucking things away side in the beginning. So in my perfect world, people just start playing a game. They go, "Oh, this game is fun. I'm having a good time playing this game." And then at the end, they realize like, "Oh, this was, my character is an NFT and I've been using a wallet and there's like this Web3 functionality in there." And I think that's super important. Like nobody's coming to Web3 to play games specifically for the like purpose of just having fun yet. I think right now it's very financially motivated. It's very much speculative. It's like, hey, can I get this, airdrop, or can I, flip this NFT at some point? Um, and I think the most important thing to like gaming is just having fun. Like, there was this whole big long thread I read a while ago, like play to earn is kind of ruining the allure of games. And maybe that's like a far cut, like a deep cut, but um, the principle of games is to have a good time. And that's like the basic fundamental value of playing games. You're playing, you're having fun. Um, and I think the best way to educate people and get like the general public onboarded is to make fun games that are gaming focused. And like, right now it's Web3 games where Web3 is the first word. I think it should just be games that happen to be on Web3 is going to be sort of and that's the Trojan horse point where like people start playing and all of a sudden they're having a good time, and then bam, they realize like, oh, this is Web3. And then you can do the whole education process and the custody and all those things. But I think it's super important to get people in the door first. And that's the one thing that I'm seeing have the most success is like sudden they realize, oh, there's value in this tech that they're using, and I like that more, and I want to learn more about that. So yeah, I think that's kind of my take on it. Is honestly, the education aspect comes after people have had a good time playing the game.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that that it is there is a lot that needs to be kind of UX, really UX improvements, right?
Mhm.
I think that does come from back ending a lot of the blockchain stuff and really focusing on fun first. Like you said, you have to have a good game with good game design. Now, I think it's really important, and this is something that we've talked about before in these spaces, is it really depends on the type of game, right? Because when you start to peel back the layers of the onion on, what Web3 actually does for games and why, we want to use the technology in the first place, I don't think it's true that every game needs to be a Web3 game or would even benefit from the technology within the game. I think Web3 is still at a stage where, in the gaming space, there's types of games that potentially benefit a lot more. And I think part of what we need to do as developers is understand exactly what you were saying. Like, where does that transition point happen, right? Where is it important to let the gamer know about why you're using Web3? And I think for us, for example, we use Web3 to enable an open player economy, and I think that is really the gist for us, right? I think that, there's lots of cool things that could come in the future through Web3, whether that's interoperability or partnerships with other games or licensing. And, there's a whole world of things that I think are going to develop. But I think the core value prop is ownership, right? And so I think for games, it's not so much when do we educate them on Web3, it's more at what point does ownership play into our game? When are we introducing people to things like the ability to sell your items for crypto or trade them on third-party marketplaces? How are we doing that from a gas perspective? How are we doing that from a custodial perspective? Are we using social wallets? Are we so there is, I think, necessarily on the front end side, there's a lot you can back end, but I don't think you want to necessarily back end all of your value prop, right? If your value prop is, hey, we have RPG elements, but unlike other RPG games, we have an open player economy where you can actually move these things. And then I think, that's kind of front end. And I agree. I mean, at this point, you want to build as few barriers as possible. But I do think from a design perspective, whether or not you're using Web3 becomes very important, not just on the technical side, but from the game design side. I think that, if you think you can just slap Web3 into, an RPG player economy or ecosystem, there's going to be a surprise when it kind of all falls apart, right? I think you have to design games with the understanding that there's going to be free transferability because those items are stored on the blockchain. And that's kind of like one of those necessary, benefits, but also could become, an evil if misused and if the game design doesn't take it into account. So I do think, at least for us, using Web3 completely impacted the way we designed multiple aspects of the game so that there could be a sustainable player economy that is supported by kind of how items progress, how characters progress, and all those things. And so what we're pitching actually is a new hybrid type of game, with cool different dynamics and a gameplay economy, which could exist completely independent of Web3. But, I think it's all very much tied together on the back end. And so I think that's the tough part, right? Is trying to explain in a way, because, NFTs and Web3 are curse words in the gaming community. How do we highlight the new stuff, the cool stuff, the stuff we're doing differently to support an open player economy and item ownership without kind of going into this dark hole of bad press that we've built up, over the last 2 years?
Yeah, I think you open a can of worms there that we probably don't need to explore here, but the idea of like Web3 gaming has sort of been, for the first 2 years or 3 years of whatever this space has looked like, it's been a very much like hot button marketing word where people have been like, oh, we're a Web3 game. And it's not so much about what the Web3 is doing. It's more of like, why are a lot of these games using the idea of Web3? And it's because it allowed them to get a spot in this nascent space. And there's a narrative now that has to be shaken. And I think that's a part of the challenge is like the cuss word. It's a bad word to say you're a Web3 game. And I think that's probably why I'm a little hesitant and a little bit shy with like using it and wanting it to be tucked away. I think you make a great point where it's like, you do need to be clear about the value prop, but I think also just like, why are you actually using this? Why is this a Web3 game? Not just simply stating this is a Web3 game. And I think that's an industry-wide challenge, and it's to no fault of the people who are here today that are actually like working on things that make sense and empowering in-game economies and that type of thing. But that's a very touchy subject, I know, with a lot of people who aren't necessarily native, and so that's always a challenge.
I think for me, the biggest issue is, especially when you mention Web3 gaming to a traditional gamer, the focus has all been on earn, especially over the last couple of years, which is why the bear market has actually been great, because it's washed away a lot of the crap. And excuse my language there, but you can't tell me that traditional gamers don't understand the basic mechanics of Web3 games. They do. The fact of the matter is that the best games are still, on PlayStation, for example. And people don't need to completely understand it. They just need to do it. It's going to take a phenomenal game for people to make that leap. I remember back in the day, all I would ever play was PlayStation, and then Xbox brought out Halo, and I made the leap to Xbox, And Reddit is a great example of just doing it. When they launched their digital collectible avatars, they had millions of people buying that, and they didn't realize it was Web3. They were just doing that. And that's, I've got to agree with Logan at Polygon. It's a bit of a Trojan horse effect. If you create something which is fun and the purpose is to play and it's skill-based, they will come.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. And it's tough because I almost hate that we have to think of it like a Trojan horse, or some like, all right, we're going to sneak these people into onboarding and we're going to get them through the hoops, right? Because I mean, when I got started in this space, it was a very consumer focused movement, right? It was something that was going to empower gamers. It was something that was going to give you rights over your items that you didn't have before. It was going to be new business models that could be invented to really like leverage a new generation of building in the metaverse and in the digital space that was different, right, from everything that had come before it, because you were now going to have this tangibilization of digital assets, right? So it's tough because it's almost like as developers, we have to sneak this concept into the gaming community and say, hey, we're really not that bad. When, I always thought it was going to be really hard to convince developers that it made sense to throw away their, closed ecosystems and walled gardens, that they could, have a one-way money flow and not have secondary markets. And, so the fact that we have such a hard time pitching Web3 to, casual gamers and gamers generally, I think is a byproduct of nothing to do with the value prop or the, what we're driving towards as legitimate, developers. I think we unfortunately just have a lot of baggage that we now need to get rid of because of some bad actors and just the early direction of the space. So, it's hard because I almost just want to say, it sucks. It sucks that we couldn't have developed a little bit more linearly and slowly, and that, the explosion brought in all these bad actors. Because I really do think, and I still truly believe that what we're building is a consumer focused movement that certainly will open up business opportunities, I think, for developers, but that core value prop is empowering gamers, and I that's what motivates me to continue to build, because I think it is a step in the right direction for the gaming community rather than necessarily the developer community, because things have been so one-sided for the last 20 years.
Do you think there's almost a snobbery in the Web3 inner circles, as in keeping using this terminology which isn't needed? Do you think there's a resistance to change on using terminology?
I'd love to hear what the panel thinks. I mean, for me, I'm all for kind of back-ending some of the terminology. But like I was saying before, I think as soon as we start back-ending the value prop, we have to kind of ask ourselves, wait, what are we doing here? Because, what we're doing as an industry is good. It's good for the general, industry itself. I would imagine that there's a lot of developers who don't want to see it come to fruition because they've got business models that are making them billions of dollars that would be completely disrupted by this industry. But it's almost, I think about some of the early proponents of the internet getting on talk shows and trying to explain to people, hey guys, like this is going to be part of your life. It's an asset standard. It's different, right? It's infrastructure. It's, people are seeing, JPEGs of various different animals and thinking that's what blockchain is. And obviously that's not what it is, right? So I think that, for me, from coming from a legal background, this was like paradigm shifting from a licensing perspective, from a tangibilization of assets, from a property rights perspective, which is why I left, my legal career to focus on this. And I think that's truly there. And I think it's the core of everything we're building. So, it's tough. I think there's two fights. We're fighting the battle on two fronts, where it's, we want to figure out whatever marketing will get people to pay attention to us, because if we don't grow, we're never going to be able to see that vision come to fruition. But we're also fighting the battle of, hey, we're trying to introduce a technology that's going to completely disrupt the gaming industry and the digital assets industry more generally. That's going to lead to new laws and new ways of storing information and progress. And so, yeah, I mean, I do think, I don't know that it's a snobbery. I think it's a bit, from my perspective, there's just certain things that I think people who are really passionate about the space don't want to see get hidden, because then you start to lose, everything that you're building for. Go ahead, Anamara. I see your hand up over there.
Yeah, I do think it's part snobbery, and at the same time, everything is so new and chaotic that who knows what's the best term to use. And I think everyone is just figuring things out as we go. But yeah, when it comes to hiding behind jargon and putting tech first, um, it gets a bit heavy on the user. I mean, even the phrase educating gamers, that itself sounds like, oh my God, what do I have to do to, learn about something new over here? And that puts like, unwanted pressure on gamers, and I don't think that's good. Like, even if you look at like Phantom Galaxies, they just launched on Steam, and I had played their last build about a month ago when they were in Dubai. It was pretty decent, but they got really panned in the Steam reviews. Now, how much of that is just reluctance or hesitance on part of normal gamers to say that, yes, they're clearly saying this is a free-to-play game. They're saying it's an early access game. So yes, it won't be polished as such. There will be, as with any other game. But still, it's getting panned in reviews like, oh, there's bugs, this. Like, so it's partly on us, and it's partly on how do you make it friendly for users? So if the user doesn't realize that they're doing certain action, which is interacting with some Web3 element, that's perfect. So that could be through UI, that can be through what you name things. And I think even the fact that, games previously have focused on gating through NFT only, that's also contributed a bit to the perception that, oh, this is just dumping your NFTs onto the next person. This is only for profit. So your audience is again limited, and it just adds on to everything with each other, and it hasn't worked. So I think in this cycle, things are going to be different. And as we talk about the space, we can talk more in detail about that.
Flavian, is Flavian still here? Oh no, I think we lost him. All right, well, and I think that's a really good opportunity to move on to our next question here. So our next question is going to be an individual question, actually for Adil. So Search for Anamara describes itself as both Web 2 and Web 3 friendly. What are the different benefits and challenges for building a game that caters to both markets?
Well, the benefit is that you don't get to say that, hey, just play this game and like double your money and walk away. It's not a casino as such. The challenge is that it's much harder, and we took the long route when we started in September 2021, because we knew that at some point things will start moving back to fundamentals. I mean, as much as we want to hate on Web2 gaming companies and walled gardens and etc., but the fact is that it's a moneymaker, and there are some things that they have done completely right, which has resulted in it. So how do you put value on a digital item? Like, what's it worth? It's like it's digital art. I mean, what's a CS gun worth? Like, who knows what the real value is? But that's the gamer psychology part, that you're appealing to somebody who sees some value in it, like as non-functional as it might be, but hey, it's valuable to somebody, and that's what earlier Web3 games, especially in last cycle, were completely avoiding. I mean, it just looked like terrible games nowadays. So we focused on building a game that's going to be playable, that's going to be fun. I mean, even if you start thinking about the emotion fun, like what does that mean? Are you defeating enemies? Are you exploring things? Are you playing with others? And then trying to incorporate that into your product. That's essential things. And thankfully, in this cycle, as games are coming out, everybody is starting to see that trailers are better, gameplay demos are better. There's focus on private beta, getting feedback from community, improving your build, and you're more responsible as you're building out, as it should be. This is something that's not extraordinary or it should be exclusive to Web3, but it's in some aspects we are starting to go back to Web2 standards, and in some standards, yes, you're looking at, okay, what does an open economy look like? What's the best model? Nobody knows. Everyone's figuring this out. So as games try out their open economy peer-to-peer model, they'll start to see where can they generate a sustainable business out of it. And it's all forecast at this point, but I think when this cycle pans out and everything is out, then we'll see. So it's harder, but I think it's for the better that we're starting to look at what do you need to impress Web2 gamers. We spoke about this in the earlier question, like, okay, don't hide behind jargon, use clear UI. So that starts with things like wallet creation. You just log in with your Epic Games account. There's a wallet for you at the back end. You don't have to, for us at least, you don't have to purchase any items. It's a free to play game. If you want to purchase, you can purchase the same asset as a Web2 version. If you want to go for a limited quantity version, then you start looking at Web3 elements. So your UI, your game interface, everything will start reflecting those type of questions or needs that arise at the right point, and not just shoving all the tech in the beginning and hoping that people will jump through those type of hoops, because they won't. They really won't. I mean, it's only minimal steps that people will go through, provided they see value in your game or whatever interaction that they're doing with you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that is, that is the direction that the majority of gaming projects that I've interacted with are going, is, if there is a major UX hurdle in the blockchain space, whether it's gas or whether it's throughput or whatever it might be, wallet creation, there's a variety of different ways you can attack that, but all of them have some degree of centralization and web, I guess you'd call it Web 2. It's like a spectrum that you're moving on, and then you have custodial social wallets on kind of probably one end on the more Web 3 side of the spectrum. But then I think as developers we start to make decisions on, does this really need to be a blockchain asset? Does this really need a blockchain transaction associated with it, or is it okay if this is happening at the server level, at the game client level, at the back end level, on your account? And so I think we're making meaningful decisions between that, as developers, and I think that's the right path, at least until we have better infrastructure to do things like, bring gas fees significantly down, package transactions in certain ways, make sure that all wallets are functional on all the marketplaces, make marketplaces more native to Unreal Engine and Unity based games, and take down some of the issues that we have on mobile with Apple. And there's a whole bunch of UX challenges that still exist from an infrastructure perspective, and I do think that the solution right now is, let's work on a spectrum of decentralization and really focus on the game first, and think about, okay, what are the things where Web3 makes a difference. And so I really agree with kind of that approach, and I think it's awesome what you guys are doing on that front.
Awesome. Well, the next question here is for Logan. So the question is, what kind of support or resources do you think a blockchain ecosystem can provide to developers building on its platform or utilizing its tools?
I think the most important thing, and also the most challenging thing, is users. Like, of all the things you could possibly provide, tech support, development resources, those are all sort of table stakes at this point. I think every chain that you go to is going to have different offerings, different ways to support your build and whatever you guys are working on. But like, users at the core of it, that is the single most finite resource and most valuable resource that you could possibly provide. And it's a challenge to sort of get those users to the platform. Like, we've, so the journey at Polygon, in around, I would say, like July of last year when I first came on, we worked to do like these, weekly gaming spaces, and the gaming spaces brought in like 1,000 to 1,500 people per space, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. And then post FTX, um, it was an incredible drop off from that, where like our gaming spaces were getting 50 to 100 people concurrently on a good day. And it was a challenge to like get people in the door. So we started realizing, it's not so much about shilling these things. We spent a lot of time amplifying announcements and doing like marketing support for games that were just simply announcing that they had picked a blockchain to build on. And pre FTX, those posts would run it up. You'd get a 200 likes on a post saying, "Hey, we're coming to Polygon," and that was great. But then after that, there was literally like a market decline where you could see just a downfall of engagement and excitement about different things. And we realized that like the marketing support has to be so much more community focused than it does just saying things into the ether. And I think that's been my most exciting part of working here is like building out campaigns. And they have not all been perfect campaigns. They've been far from it. But like building campaigns where you're actually getting people engaged and you're rallying the community to come try new things. So, if that's a month-long campaign where, we're featuring 30 different games and challenging people to actually interact with them, I think that is the most, you know, valuable resource you could possibly provide to builders. Because again, I think any chain you go to, you're going to get the tech support, you're going to get whatever gas fee support or whatever it is you might think you need. You can probably find it anywhere, but having those network effects and being able to come to a community, tap into like 5 different gaming guilds and 30 different NFT projects that might be interested in what you're offering, or a devoted gamer community. I think more than anything, we're past the point where like tech and dev resources are finite, and we're to a point where like you need users, you need feedback, you need to sharpen your tools as a game to get to the next level, to get to pre-bull market where you're going to get all this interest again, because it's going to come. There's going to come a point here in the next year where eyeballs turn back, and we start having those Twitter spaces and they start bringing in 1,000, 1,500 people just for the sake of like listening to what's going on. And when we get to that point, has your game been battle tested? Have you had 500 concurrent users playing the game at one time? Those are the kind of things that you can't simulate. You can't do that on testnet, you can't do that wherever. So that, I think, is the single most important thing. And how we get there, there's no right way. There's a lot of different ways, but there's no right way. And so, just being willing to experiment, run different campaigns, try different avenues, um, and being willing to support the people who are building on your network, I think are super important things that we are trying our best to offer. I know there's a lot of really cool platforms that are helping us do that. If you've never been on Galaxy is a super cool platform. There's tens of questing platforms that we're using these days, but like just building out those experiential things where the user ends up playing a game because they were there for the experience, and all of a sudden, now that's a person in the door, and now that's a feedback loop. I think that's the most important thing we can provide um, for any ecosystem, not just Polygon, but for all. Like, we're not, I know it's a very much PvP market when people look at it, but at the end of the day, like, we can't be caring about where people are going to play their games if we want to like empower Web3 gaming as a whole. We're the whole conversation about fighting for the same slice of pie, or how about we just grow the pie? Um, I think sending users to games is, I'm just yapping about the same things here now, but that's definitely the most important thing any blockchain ecosystem can provide.
Yeah, Logan, I totally agree, and I think that's one of the reasons that we love Polygon and what you guys are doing. it is. I think that the blockchain providers and some of these infrastructure companies that are either very well funded or have resources to do kind of the mass marketing are in a really good position to shine a spotlight on all the content that's being built on their blockchain. And I think there's a really great alignment of interest there, right? Because I think gaming is one of the most palatable uses of the blockchain, where it just a common person could look at it and say, oh yeah, that makes sense. I think DeFi is a lot more complex, and people don't understand staking and ERC20s and why there's millions of them, and dexes and centralized exchange. I think that's a lot to process. But I think as a blockchain, if you're saying this is how you use my technology and this is how it works, right? And we talk about something that everyone's going to understand, it's gaming. And I think that it provides such a nice synergy between the content provider and the IP and the blockchain provider, where we're all kind of driving towards the same goals, that, if you guys are bringing thousands of people into the ecosystem, and then those people are trying the technology through a game, right? Because the game just becomes the interface through which they're interacting with the blockchain. I think it all works together, very well in that respect. And I guess the other thing that, as a developer, I think is very much in need, especially in a bear market, are these grant programs. And so, I think the Polygon Village that you guys just launched is an awesome step in the right direction, where it's not just money, but it's kind of a full support system of developer empowerment. I think that's really cool. And I wanted to mention that because I think that's a really cool initiative that you guys are doing.
Yeah, we're very excited. So there was grants pre. I know everything that I'm saying is revolving around FTX, but it's almost like a BCAD type of moment, where it's like there's a very clear pre-FTX space and then a post-FTX, post-apocalyptic space, whatever. But like we had this grants program and then it went away for obvious reasons. Hard to keep funding things when everyone across the board is tightening their belt. And so I'm very excited that we are bringing that back. And it's not just about giving people money, and it's not just about like saying, hey, we'll fund XYZ of this project, this platform, whatever it might be. But the way we're doing it this time around is through this like quadratic funding principle, which I'll be the first to admit I hardly understand what it means, quadratic funding. But it's a very much community, like a Kickstarter focused thing, where community members have a certain allotment of votes based on their presence, and so you're getting much more of like a decentralized funding mechanism, where instead of Polygon Ventures or the foundation or the grant provider being the person to select who's doing what, this part of it's getting decentralized to the community, and the community gets to decide who gets the funding. And not only as funding, it's like you said, the tools and the resources and vouchers, and saying like, hey, if I need XYZ bridge, or I need XYZ graphic development or custody solution, like here's someone within the ecosystem who can provide you that, and then you both benefit from the network effects. And so I'm excited about. I don't want to yap too much about Village, but if you guys are building on Polygon and you are looking to get involved in some of that stuff, you can go on. I'll link the tweet here. I don't know if anybody needs it, but just apply for whatever you see there. I think it's a super cool program, and I think everyone who needs it should apply for Village and see if they can pull something out of there.
I love it.
Sweet. Great to hear that you guys have your grants program back. That's awesome. And then our last individual question here is for Zach at Euphorica. So you guys are using and building your own custom game engine technology for your platform. What do you think are some of the advantages and disadvantages of using a custom game engine, especially when coupled with Web3 technology?
Yeah, well, that's just it, isn't it? Web3 technology is new, a metaverse concept, it's new. And, as such, it should be built using a metaverse engine. Like using existing technology like Unity or Unreal means we are basically trying to adapt and customize something created for mobile games or first-person shooters, which Euphorica just isn't. I'm not saying that they're bad games, bad engines, far from it, but, they have 15 years worth of legacy code, and it's not something that we're trying to do. Every substantial advancement in video games has been made by looking at the problem from a new perspective, and we need fit for purpose Web3 and Metaverse engine. It's like trying to bend old architecture through compromising systems leads to massive quantities of bugs and workaround. It's a square peg, round hole analogy. And having an engine designed for your game gives you that agility. And in our case, we can lower the base specification needed of a user's end compute to have a high-end graphic experience without the lagging and without needing really expensive hardware, which is a massive barrier to entry. And, obviously, no license fees in the long term is very nice, which is, a massive disadvantage for people that are building on Unity Unreal. Now, don't get me wrong, we're in a very privileged position. Our CTO is one of the world's best game engine designers. He built the world's first ever real-time engine. He was at Sumo Digital for 15 years, and they're still using his engine for their, AAA titles. But having that agility allows you to focus on different areas if it was just, an engine taken off the shelf. Like structural integrity, for example. Stephen talks about when he was building Crackdown 3 and they're blowing a lot of buildings up and it just looked unrealistic. So that's why now we're focused on, physics-based rendering, which is kind of irrelevant, really, if you're on a first-person shooter. But it's something that, we're excited about. And, it's really cool. But just high level, it's having that agility to do stuff which you wouldn't be able to do if you took an engine off the shelf.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I think that it's really interesting to see the blend of how people are using existing engines and applying, Web3 behind them for certain types of games. But then, in Metaverse platforms, you do have several that have chosen, like you guys are doing what Decentraland did, to build their own engine and kind of have more open source functionality and different ways of contributing. So I think I don't know that it's a one size fits all approach, but I think it's a very valid, there's definitely real reasons to not use what exists and not be kind of beholden to those existing models.
I mean,
so
it takes a long
awesome.
time. We've been building it for a while and we spent a lot of money, but in the long run, it's going to be good.
Cool. So we're coming up on the end of the space here. So I want to make sure that we announce the winner of our giveaway. So the winner of our giveaway this week is, and we're giving away a Raise the Flag NFT trading cards Toshiverse collectible. And then the winner is Hidalgo at Johnny Algo. Congratulations, Hidalgo. Please send us a DM and we'll make sure to get you your prize. Nick, what do you think? Do you think we got time for one more here, or should we wrap things up?
I knowing the way I like to talk about things, I don't know that we have time for one more unless I just shut up, and I don't want to cut anyone off. And I know some people have some hard stops, so we'll wrap it up here, and just thank everyone so much for joining the space. Again, all of our guests are participating in our launch. So if you're part of the communities, come rep your community by when we launch by creating a custom avatar for free. You'll be able to mint those on Polygon Proof of Stake, and you'll be able to customize it with the logos of your favorite communities. All the details are in the pinned tweet on our profile, so check that out. You can already download the game and play the game for free on testnet, and by doing so, you're going to be able to get some prizes when we launch. So if you're curious, please do check it out. It's a PC game, so you will need a PC that can play, games that are higher fidelity. But other than that, we're just really excited for this launch and super grateful for all of you that have joined. So thank you to all of the guests, all of the panelists. We're really excited to keep building with you guys and excited to have you as part of the launch, and really looking forward for everything to come in this space. So please do join us next week. We'll be doing this with a whole nother panel of projects that are doing some awesome stuff. If anyone else wants to say a few words, I'll be quiet now and let you guys go. But otherwise, if I hear silence, I'll just end the spaces. Thanks so much, everybody, and I really, really appreciate all of you being here. All right, here in silence, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you next week.